Welcome, Adam Elliot. Your new film, Memoir of a Snail, is playing here at the Zurich Film Festival, is releasing in theaters soon, and I just want to hear from you what the core of this movie is about.
Well, this is my seventh film, and like all the others, it's a bittersweet biography or clayography, which is a word I invented many years ago. Clay autobiography, clay biography. This one's about a woman set in Australia in the 1970s who hoards ornamental snails, and it sounds really boring, but it's a psychological analysis of not just why people hoard, but what the underlying trauma behind the reasons people hoard. So again, yeah, like my other films, it's a comedy tragedy. So I hope audiences laugh, but I also hope they hopefully shed a tear. Yeah.
I've heard from the screenings here in Zurich that some tears were already shed.
Oh, good.
Yeah, perfect. I think what is really particularly stylistically interesting about your films is that they are in this grayish tone, but you still kind of manage to find the warmth in it. How do you do that?
Yeah, it is hard because these are blobs of clay, and I choose colour palettes which aren't necessarily full of warmth, but I mean, and this film's very brown. My previous films, some of them are black and white, some of them are desaturated. So I do use colour to sort of represent the psychological states of the characters, who are more often than not going through a phase of depression or uncertainty. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they're certainly not like the Smurfs or or a Disney film where there's every colour of the rainbow. These are very, sophisticated colour palettes, and I chose brown too because growing up in the 1970s, it was a very brown decade. Everyone painted their houses brown. We had brown carpet. Brown seemed to be the colour of choice. But also, as I said, it represents the character's psychological states. Yeah,
really cute that you got her here.
She's all in brown as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And you often tell stories about loneliness from your short films to your feature films. What about the subject of loneliness in all of us really compels you?
Yeah, look, I think loneliness is universal. I think even the most extroverts, even people who are extroverts and claim to have many, many friends, go through periods of loneliness. I think it's just part of the human condition. But I'm also at the same time interested in melancholy, which, Victor Hugo once said that melancholy is the happiness of being sad. And I love that. There's this sort of bittersweetness to melancholy. And also that leads into self-pity, and, that we all go through stages and phases in our life where we feel sorry for ourselves and we go into our pity pits, as what Grace does and Pinky does in the film. So, yeah, I am fascinated, not so much with depression, but with the down parts of our lives. I love the ebb and flow. I love talking about characters who experience bouts of loneliness, and that, as I said, is very universal.
Mary and Max the whole movie was about that, the generational bond that you have between people who aren't your age. Even if you can connect within your own group, you seek it elsewhere. What about that keeps finding itself back at the core of your stories?
Yeah, I love the dynamic of a protagonist who gets wisdom from an older person, but older people don't necessarily are not necessarily wise, and often it's the young person who gives wisdom to the older person. So I just love that dynamic, and in this film I wanted the protagonist to be female and the elderly person be a female as well. So it's a real Thelma and Louise sort of dynamic, which I love that. I don't know why I'm drawn now to female protagonists, because all my earlier films are all male protagonists. So maybe I've exhausted the whole male thing, and now I'm focusing on the female thing.
Losing a twin is like losing an eye. You never see the world the same way again.
What about that narration style that narrates what is happening to our characters, but never looks down on them? It pokes light at some of the situations, but it feels like it doesn't disrespect them or.
No, I try, and with narration, it's more often than not an anonymous voice that is just driving the story and is very respectful of the characters. Mm-hmm. I always try and pretend that these blobs of clay are real people and that they have a soul, and what I'm trying to do with all of them is get the audience to empathize, put themselves in my character's shoes, so the audience understand what it's like to be someone born with a cleft palate, or what it's like to have Asperger's syndrome. So empathy is very important with all my films. Yeah.
Maybe an overdue question. Why snails? Why? Because they pop up in another of your film, in the short film, and with Oscar specifically. I wanted to ask you maybe later on if they would get along. I don't think him pressing them wouldn't get along too well. But yeah, what about snails? Interesting.
Yeah, well, snails I've had a fascination with my whole life. They're such alien creatures. They're so peculiar. As a child, I collected them, put them in ice cream containers. Originally, the screenplay the first draft I wrote was Memoir of a Ladybird. It was going to be about a woman who collects ladybirds, ladybugs. But then that film Ladybird came out with Greta Gerwig, and I thought, it can't be that. So I thought, well, what other creatures, what other animals are good metaphors for what Grace is going through? And when you touch a snail's antennas and they retract, it reminded me of what Grace is doing throughout the film. She's continually retracting from the world, going into the protection of her shell, which is like her shield. And so I loved that metaphor, but also loved the motif of a spiral. And I thought that'd be a lovely visual to have all the way through the film, because the spiral or curl is sort of a symbolic of life going full circle. So I love the symbolism of that. And also, too, snails are always moving forward, a bit like the Aesop's fable, the tortoise and their hare, that they're always moving forward, not going backwards over their trails. And I just love that sort of idea, and that's why I put in the monologue by Pinky, Grace, go and leave some glittery snail trails all over the world. There's some lovely poetry there that I wanted to instill in the film. So yeah, snails ticked every box. Yeah.
I think also with her telling the story and the snail just like slowly progressing kind of reminds me as well. Really easily the metaphor is there to just keep moving in every sort of way.
I can't imagine any other animal now that would have suited.
It fits perfectly.
We have over 200 characters in the film, and every single one of them has been handmade. There's nothing that's been 3D printed or mass produced. These are all individually bespoke little puppets.
On a technical level, doing claymation, it's an art form that not a lot of people dare to even approach, just maybe for their own sanity.
Yeah.
How do you get through animating with, I believe, a small team of animators? It's not that many of you.
No, only 7.
And how do you do that over years at a time?
Yeah, it's like it's like painting, but you're only going in and doing one brush stroke a day and then going home. It's actually not. People think it's very tedious and excruciating, but it's not. It's actually quite relaxing at times. I mean, but, of course there's a lot of pressure because you've only got a certain amount of money and a certain amount of time, but each animator was only doing 5 to 10 seconds per day. So it took 33 weeks to shoot the film. I mean, a live action film is usually 8 weeks. Having said that, that's quite a quick shoot for a stop motion film. Films like Pinocchio and Isle of Dogs, those shoots went for 2 years, I think. So we have much lower budgets, and therefore we have to be far more economical. But yeah, it is a peculiar art form, and it takes a very certain type of person to want to be a stop motion animator.
And there's also, if I saw that correctly, a bit of a blend with certain moments that do have something that is not clay animated. Did I see that correct? Like obviously with fire, but also certain animals that fly away. Is that something that you had to like get warm to have that in your film to kind of break that style?
Yeah, there's a lot of things in the film which were very difficult to do, but we did everything what's called in camera and done in a traditional technique. So even the fire was yellow cellophane, cigarette smoke is cotton wool. And all the tears in the film are sexual lubricant, so it's all real stuff. We did. There's no CGI at all, but we do certain digital cleanup. So we remove rigs. So something flies through the air. The old days you would have fishing line. Now we can have a big metal rod holding it, and then in post production we digitally remove it. So certainly digital removing, but no digital adding.
The three things of like special effects, visual effects, and CGI. There's no CGI.
No.
Only special effects and visual effects to
Yeah,
composite.
We do green screen, blue screen. We do traditional visual effects. Yeah.
And how was it working with the cast? All Aussies. You assemble them. I mean, it's what you do with your films. and when they have to get to speak in their own accent, they don't have to put on an American one.
No.
Yeah, how is it working?
We're very lucky to get the cast that we wanted. Sarah Snook, Kodi, Smit-McPhee, they all live in Melbourne, but work overseas, of course. But yes, we wanted actors who had the natural Australian accent. We didn't want them to put on any fake voices. Most of the actors I work with, I don't get them to actually pretend to be anyone other than themselves. Of course, I want them to act, but I really just want their natural speaking voices.
Yeah.
There's one or two, like Ruth, who's played by Magda Szubanski. She had to become a villain, so she puts on a voice. Eric Bana puts on a bit of a voice, but yeah, I'm trying to strive for authenticity and believability. So it's very important that the voices are naturalistic. Yeah.
Yeah, they fit. Well, I've been told that you were recently joined Letterboxd and aware of it, right? Did you know that your the Mary Max is like the 17th highest rated animated film on the site?
No, I didn't.
There's
no.
a couple. I would even put it higher personally.
Oh wow! Well, I'm new to Letterboxd. Being a 52-year-old man, I grew up with IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, but yes, I'm learning more and more about Letterboxd, and it's a wonderful concept, and it's far more egalitarian and user-friendly than a lot of the others. Yeah.
And what they do is they have the top 4 favorites, and I wanted to ask you if, like, maybe in the process of in between movies or maybe while you're shooting, do you have like a slate of like 4 or maybe even more animated films?
Oh, gee, it's funny because I can certainly name some of my favorite animated films, but I don't watch a lot of animation. I actually watch a lot of, I love documentaries.
Yeah.
Even on the plane over the way from Australia to here, I watched 4 documentaries. I should watch more animation, but I don't know. I'm just drawn to real life. But I think one of my favorite animated films would be, I always love going back to Jan Schwankmayer's films and his version of Alice in Wonderland, Alice, which I haven't watched for a few years. You know, there's a lot of old Eastern European animation that I love. But then again, I love what Aardman do. I haven't seen the new Chicken Run 2. I'm dying to see that. I love, there's a beautiful film called Flow by Ginst, who's a friend of mine from Latvia. That's gorgeous. I still haven't seen Inside Out 2. I still haven't seen Wild Robot, which I'm dying to see Wild Robot. Pharrell Williams has got a great biopic, which is all done in Lego, which I'm dying to see that. So there's some great stuff coming out. And you know what's really good is that animation in the feature realm is in a really healthy state. There's a lot of diversity. I mean, this year, the films coming out are so broad and different from each other that, you know, it used to be just Disney, Pixar, you know, but now there's all this stuff from Asia and Australia. There's a lot of diversity, which is great.
With other films in general, like those documentaries, are those like where you find a lot of your characters that you end up portraying in documentaries, or is that more in your own backyard where you're observing? Yeah,
look, documentaries I love watching because you often come across characters who you wouldn't believe them if they were fictionalized. Like I just watched a wonderful documentary on a camp dedicated for children who stutter. So it's an American camp. There's all these kids who get together once a year, and the thing they have in common is that they all stutter. You know, they've had horrendous times at school being bullied and teased, and this camp is a one opportunity for them to be amongst people who are suffering the same torture they're going through at school. And that alone, I thought, oh wow, I want to make a film about a character who stutters and get people to empathize and understand what it's like to be a person with this condition. So that's why I love documentaries. You know, they're just, it's real life, and there's so much diversity out there. The trouble is, my films take so long to make that I've only got a couple left, and then I'll be dead. So I have to be very picky about what I do next. And so at the moment, I'm really thinking, oh, do I do that? Do I do that? You know, so whereas if I'm watching animation, it's not really research for me, it's just entertainment.
Yeah.
So whereas watching documentaries is research.
And you're working on, I've been told maybe there were some murmurings that you're working on a road movie next. You're taking your characters outside. Yeah, I've
got a vague idea for
in a writing process.
I think I'm done telling stories about characters locked in their bedrooms.
Right.
Yeah, and suburbia. I'm done with suburbia.
Real Thelma and Louise going outside.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I want my Thelma and Louise moment and break free, and so It's very early stage. It's only in my head at the moment. I haven't written it down.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Everyone, go see Memoir of a Snail, and yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Great questions. Thank you.